You are listening to Shameless Stories, and I'm Nicola Humber, founder of the Unbound Press, soul-led publishing company for magical women writing world-changing books. And we are delighted to be the sponsor of this podcast. So enjoy, Magical One.
I'm very excited and probably a little bit um, over caffeinated for this podcast recording this morning. Welcome to Shameless Stories, the podcast that lifts the lid on all things shame and shows that when we identify it, observe it, and move through it, we will find freedom. And today I have another amazing guest and another amazing story to share with you. I am so pleased to welcome Emma Clayton, career success strategist. You are also a mentor, a coach, and you help women to fast track their careers. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. And do it in a way that feels good for them.
And that's so important at the moment, isn't it? Like this whole doing things in a way that feels good for ourselves individually. I think that's such an important thing. And yeah. Anyway, I could waffle about that for ages. Tell me what led you to come on the show.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Okay.
I think we are in the Be Your Own network, and I saw you sort of say, anyone want to come on the show, apply here a while ago. And I was like, oh, that sounds right up my street, because I don't mind, I find a big part of what has really resonated with the people that I've ended up working with is sharing that story, right? Sharing that story around kind of exactly that, breaking free from the shame that has perhaps consumed me for a big chunk of my life. So yeah, I love what you're doing with regards to taking the shame out of our shame stories and just really turning them into something that is hopefully not just going to resonate, but also empower people to sort of take the shame out for themselves as well. So yeah, that's why I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, the more I kind of dive into the stories, as I was saying before I press record, it's kind of the more I see there's patterns in everything. And there are a lot of women and other, and men who they have this kind of, I call it a sliding door moment. And people that have been listening to my podcast will have probably heard me talk about that for ages. But there's always a reason why we decide to come off one path and move on to another. Do you have a story around that? Is there a sliding door moment that enabled you to change your stars and kind of lead you to this point?
Yeah, I've probably got a couple actually. When I was thinking about what my shame story or stories are, I kind of got two tracks. One is I'm a woman who's 46 now. I'm in a bigger body, struggled with my relationship with food, my body, for my entire adult life, at least. So the last 25 years or so. That is kind of one track. And then simultaneously, I had this career that was kind of unconventional in many ways. So I didn't go to university. I sort of across a job when I was 18, just wanted to work in an office, earn money. And yet I worked my way up and around this organization over the next 20 years and never felt quite good enough because I wasn't technical. I didn't have a degree. I hadn't studied to be an actuary for 8 years after going to university. And so I always had this overriding imposter syndrome. And so my sliding doors moments were probably when it came to my body was turning 30 and being single. I just got my first 10 grand bonus at work. I was in Tenerife with my friends and my mum and my sister. I was surrounded by so much love. I tell this story. We were getting ready to go out and I just had this moment in the mirror where I looked and I just thought, I'm so miserable and unhappy with what I see staring back at me, that I just realized something had to change. And that kind of led me on a path of really understanding why I had some of the habits I did around food, why I couldn't stick to a diet, why I couldn't maintain any weight loss and would yo-yo, and really kind of coming out the other end, really learning to love and accept my body and the skin that I'm in. And at the same time, I guess in my career, my sliding doors moment was kind of pushing and striving to get to this director level role. So I'd always had kind of leadership roles in operations, kind of service based kind of teams. and projects and that kind of thing. And then I really wanted this director level role, and I got it, and it wasn't all it cracked up to be. I was like, what the heck have I just worked so hard for this last 20 years? And I was faced with redundancy, and that was really a sliding door moment where I was like, actually, I'm gonna take it. And it's really interesting how the two kind of stories collided at that sort of time as well. So I'm sure we'll get into that. But,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm loving what you're sharing, because it's funny, it's around the 30s. That's again a kind of a common thread.
Right.
You feel like when we hit our 30s, it's like that's a moment.
Yeah. I'm no longer young enough to like just dick about.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I've got my life ahead of me, but like what am I doing with it? It's that kind of moment, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely yeah, shit'll get off the pot moment, isn't it? It's like, am I doing this forever? And I think what's amazing though is that we do get this second chance, or even get a third chance, right? That, you know, when we hit our menopause and things, it's kind of, there's another, I feel like we get 30s and then we hit our 50s and there's another kind of realignment, if you like. And I just think I mean, it's so fascinating that women kind of can probably have three careers if they really want them. I mean, you could class bringing up children and caring for family a career as well, right? But effectively, I just find it fascinating that there are these points in time where you just kind of go, okay, I'd love to pull on the thread around kind of the shame story around your body confidence issue.
Yeah.
You know, I'm assuming a little bit that we're a similar age, and you know, we would have grown up with magazines and the, what's it called, the heroin chic supermodels, smoking, drinking, yeah, all those things. Like anorexia probably wasn't spoken about too much, bulimia wasn't spoken about all that much. There was still an element of you had to look a certain way, but we were just on the cusp of the Spice Girls, right? So, I mean, all of those things, I feel like our generation, we were definitely on the cusp of things changing, but there was still stigma around body issues. And, you know, there's Jamelia Jamil and people like that who are talking about that stuff. I mean, not putting words in your mouth, would you say that there was a lot of that going on for you with regards to how you showed up, or is it food itself?
So I guess so it feels quite complex when was in it, but actually now I see it a lot clearer because I've just taken the time to understand it.
Sure.
So I think a few things that went on, you know, in your upbringing, there's always little clues, right, as to why you have certain ways that you do. So, you know, I've got parents who, on one hand, my mum doesn't eat a particularly healthy diet. She doesn't eat very much because she's always watching her weight. And I do remember when my sister was born, how she was very pleased that she got back into her size 12 jeans shortly after. So that was kind of like prominent growing up. But also I have my dad, who's like this kind of force of energy, who's a big guy. And that's without sort of gaining weight himself. He had you know, he's a not so secret binge eater and has yo-yoed his entire life that I've been alive. And he's got type 2 diabetes, among other kind of health challenges at the moment. And at the ripe old age of 70, has finally found a way to kind of lose some weight sustainably and maintain that. But you can still see those like that real desire to eat all the kind of naughty stuff in quotes. So I had that growing up as role models, I guess, which was kind of conflicting in many ways. And then I know I was a fussy eater. I was force fed very young, like when I was in a high chair, and I almost have vivid memories of like not wanting to be force fed, but actually, I think in hindsight, what that does is it's like you don't trust your own hunger cues. So there's that piece playing out, and then just like you had a lot of. So I was a gymnast from the age of 5 or 6, even a bit earlier. And so I had this like body awareness in a leotard, in a lineup of girls, you know, shortest to tallest, all stood there in a leotard. You compare yourself. And I think that was my first real body awareness. And I was always just conscious of the size of my thighs. And I was a normal sized child. I was not overweight at all. My weight gain started in my So there was that kind of real consciousness, and especially when you start to go through puberty and you start, developing, and you're still in a leotard, it's kind of like, yeah, in your face. It's like parading around in a swimsuit all the time. And then I had like this kind of, I guess we were brought up in the 80s, right, with convenience food. Microwaves were like this new kind of game changer for our busy parents that were working. We used to shop in Iceland, so a lot of freezer food. Yeah, but Finder's crispy pancakes and like potato waffles and all that was our kind of staple. And when I think about it, a breakfast of Frosties with milk, and then a lunch of a white bread sandwich with cheese in it with a packet of Skips and a toffee yogurt on the side, and then coming home and having like a tin of macaroni cheese or Finder's crispy pancakes. And being quite an active kid, right? I was hungry a lot of the time, and I got told, no, you've just had your dinner, or your dinner's in an hour, you wait. So there was a lot of kind of control around food that, look, we know now isn't the best, because of course I was hungry. I was like on this sugar roller coaster. And then add that to the fact that, for Christmas we used to get these jumbo selection packs. So we'd have like 5 crunches in it, or like this whole array of chocolate, and that would stash in my drawer, and I'd almost allow myself a chocolate bar a day. And that's, I realise now, is not normal, but that would get me through to Easter.
And then my whole childhood, some of my adulthood, actually, by the way. So yeah, I mean,
to be fair,
it's like,
and then it would get to Easter, and then like 18 Easter eggs I used to get, the big kind, like from all the different family, and that would last me until the summer. So I kind of had, as a child growing up, this like really weird kind of relationship with food. And then around the age of 9 or 10, I had something happen in my family that, let's just call it a childhood trauma, if you like, that was really difficult for me. And I dealt with it very much alone, in secret, in my own head. So I went very introverted. And it was at the time that I was just allowed to walk home, or get the bus home. So my mum would give me £1 bus money, and I would spend it on 4 bars of chocolate and walk home. Food kind of from a very young age was just a real comfort to me. Like if it wasn't there, it didn't feel kind of safe. Yeah. So I think started there, and then of course you go to secondary school, and for me it was the boys that were really mean. And like I said, I was a normal sized child, very fit, very athletic. I was bullied by the boys. It took me years to work out what they meant by pan cracker, and like that was basically, if you sit on the toilet pan, you'll crack it. It was that kind of, we had Mr. Blobby at the time. I was Blobby Clayton. Awful. Like, and to a 13-year-old's ego, that is a real blow, especially when it's the boys. So I kind of had the whole, bullying growing up. And then I fell in love when I was 16, and he broke my heart at 18. And he broke my heart because he cheated on me with someone that was teeny tiny. And that was just enough. So it kind of went from there. And then when we finally split up after him cheating on me many times and me realizing I couldn't change him, I gradually gained weight through my 20s. And that's probably because I found booze and like takeaways, and had money to spend on eating out and eating crap. And I got a car rather than driving around on my bike. I wasn't doing gymnastics anymore. I stopped playing netball and that kind of thing. So that was kind of like what led me to my 30s. So yeah, that was the long and short of it, in terms of, and I don't think it's that different to a lot of people's stories. I just got to that point where I was like, I felt so ashamed of what I had done to myself. And yet I knew, when I was staring at myself in that mirror in Tenerife, there was this voice inside me that was like, there is a better way to think and feel about yourself that is not this. And I think it was that propelled me to sort of go on that seeking journey to find a little way out. And it took me many years afterwards to kind of get there. And I'm still on that journey, to be honest.
That's lot. I mean, that is a lot of, like I was saying, it's like looking in a mirror, because you're right. Like in the 80s was a lot of the convenience food, like rocketed. We were told not to leave the table until you finished your mouthful. And I remember having a like sitting there chewing on this piece of meat for about 20 minutes because it was gristly and horrible, and I wasn't allowed to get down. And I just, these are little tiny moments of shame. and they all accrue. And of course, you know, that affects like your eating habits and things like that. I mean, I don't touch meat with fat on it anymore, probably because of that moment. Like there are
Mhm.
things that will have, you know, and it's not like, that's not trauma with a big T, that's little
Yeah.
T's,
Yeah.
right? So it's still, there are little stories that accrue over time and become the big story, the big monster in the corner, right? So, you know, and I'm really, you know, I feel for you when you say that, you know, people were mean and name calling and things like that. And I don't think things have changed all that much, which makes me quite sad, given that, you know, we've got social media and things like that now.
I don't know how I would have survived in that day and age. So
No, me.
part goes out to kids these days, because it must be a pretty lonely space to be like that connected to the world and have so much information and so many conflicting like viewpoints on what's right and not. And when you're so influential at that age, I don't know how I would have handled it. So yeah, I mean, in a way we had it lucky
Yeah,
growing up in
it,
the 80s and 90s.
it is a minefield. But then I guess, like, I mean, there will be women that are working with you that probably have experienced similar things. And I know, like, your expertise isn't really focused on eating, but there is an element of feeling safe in your body.
Yeah.
And like a lot of women, if they don't feel safe in their body, won't take the next step, won't make the leap, won't, you know. And again, like you're saying, it's like a mindset thing. Like there is a different way to like look after yourself. And I'll be honest, I still like, you know, indulge in the chicken nuggets and the, you know, crispy pancakes. Oh my God, like they're amazing. But that's comfort food for me. So it's like, if I'm having a bad day, like sometimes I'll go and reach for those foods. And it's really funny because it's obviously a sense of childhood, and you feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So like I'd love to explore the other track as well. Like the talking around the food. I'm sure there will be listeners. And if there are listeners who can, you know, connect to that story, please do let us know, because it's always good to know we're not alone in this. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting when I reflect on that story. And obviously I've gone on to like learn a lot about why I do what I do, and I've studied a lot around eating psychology and nutrition and all that kind of thing. So actually my first iteration of my business when I came out of corporate was around body confidence and food freedom. So, but I've kind of pivoted a bit since then. And yeah, to think that despite feeling so shit about myself, I still managed to, in my eyes, pull the wool over everyone's eyes in the corporate world and still do quite well, because I didn't feel good. I never felt particularly successful.
Pull the wool over people's eyes.
This is the thing, when you feel like an imposter, like you do feel like you're tricking people, right? And I just didn't understand my level of success. I didn't understand how someone could give me a 10-gram bonus. Like I didn't feel like I deserved it. And so, but yet there was again that voice inside me was like, no, you can do more. And it wasn't from a not doing enough or you're not good enough. It was like, no, you've got impact to make. So there was kind of like that little voice that was, I think, driving me, that kind of ambition in me. I just felt like I was perhaps a little bit off course. And like I said, I kind of really went down the leadership route, and it was a technical environment. So I worked for a reinsurance company, which insures insurance companies. So very dull. Really quite exciting, because the reinsurer is kind of like the clients were the insurance companies. So it was a B2B situation, and we always had amazing budgets to travel, you know, business class and stay in the lovely hotels and dine and wine our clients, who were the insurance companies. And I did a lot of that and I had a great time, but it was a very technical environment and I never felt like I was a technician. So I went down this leadership route thinking that's my kind of route. I think it was around the age of 33, 34 that I was on this leadership development program that I'd again pushed and strived to get on, because you had to be nominated, you had to go through a whole selection process, and it was like the top talent that got taken to the US and to Switzerland and to Asia to be part of this 18-month program. So when I got on it, I found myself in the room with like 100 other of the top talent, and I just felt like I wasn't good enough and didn't deserve to be there. And it was actually in one of the simulations that we had to do, you know, that awkward role plays, where I always ended up playing the bloody CEO somehow. How it happened, but I always got nominated to be the CEO. And I think in this like forced environment, the facilitator in this particular simulation obviously witnessed me and saw through the haze that used to come over me, where my mind was going, please just let the floor open up and swallow me whole, because I just didn't know what I was doing there. And she took me to one side and asked me what was going on, because what I was very good at was reading the room. I was very hypersensitive to like whatever other people were thinking and feeling, but I didn't have the voice in me. I didn't have the bravery to speak it out. And so I would like internalize all this. And she just drew it out of me this one day and recommended that I read my first self-help book, which was called Tame Your Gremlin, or Taming Your Gremlin. And it was a book with lots of like ugly pictures of gremlins that just spoke to me, because I was like, oh my God, yes, I've got a gremlin inside me that is telling me I look shit and I'm never good enough and I'm not, don't deserve to be there. And it set me off on this path of, and I went into my first therapy session. And I think what she did that really helped was she helped me see that it wasn't just nerves, or that I wasn't good enough. It was this, like I was high functioning with quite serious anxiety, and she helped me like really respect those symptoms of anxiety and see the difference between stress and anxiety, and really honor that and understand it, but also see it for what it was. And I think that was the start of me being able to overcome some of those deeply rooted self-worth issues and a trust in myself, right?
Yeah.
That came from, again, a very early age. And so that was the path that set me off there. And it was when I basically the last role I did, I got offered on a plate. So I've been applying for C-band roles, to level roles for 5 years, and just kept getting disappointment after disappointment. And then this one guy pulled me in and told me this plan he had for this new team. And I was like, great, where do I come into it? And he sort of said, I want you to be my head of strategy and operations. And it was a promotion, and I got a 30 grand pay rise, and it was an amazing opportunity to travel. We set up an office outside of the office. So we were based in the Gherkin in London, and we set up this really cool, swanky, well, not even swanky, it was just really cool, trendy office in King's Cross. And we had startups working with us, and we were all across. Yeah, it was a really cool role. And in the early days of setting it up, I was like in my element. There was only 3 of us. And then as we gradually built out the team, and I was interviewing people that had 3 PhDs and were like just such whizzes around innovation, and like they just were all over it. Again, that imposter syndrome kind of started to creep in. And I had this one moment where I had to show up for a project sponsor meeting, and our sponsors were the CEO and a couple of our exec board, and my boss let me down at the last minute, so I kind of had to hold the fort. And I'm like, I don't lie, I'm all about keeping it real. And so I told them the truth, and it wasn't good enough. And the feedback I got was that you have to embellish the truth. And I was just like, I do not fit here. Like, this is like, it's not even just I'm not good enough. It's like, actually, this doesn't fit. And it was shortly after that our sponsor left, and our team got kind of swept under the carpet, and our roles became redundant. And it was at the same sort of time that I was doing some soul searching anyway. I was working with my first coach, who was a health coach. We took a trip to Bali on a retreat, and I was looking at really what it was that I was doing with my life, how I'd ended up here. And I kind of came to this, it was like an epiphany. You know, they say it doesn't happen like that, but it actually happened like that, because I'd come out of this 2-hour meditation or something, and I was walking back to my room, and I just got this like real clarity that, you're going to take the redundancy and you're going to go and help other people, like really unravel some of this stuff that you've been doing for yourself. So it happened like that. I took the redundancy. I set up my own business. That was 7.5 years ago. And I've been working with women who are sort of where I was in that kind of phase of their life, where they're like, this is what I've been working for, but actually I don't know if it's what I want now. So that was
Wow. Like, it's looking in a mirror a little bit, because like 7 years ago I started my business.
Really?
I was on retreat. It was a retreat situation where I was like, what am I doing? Kind of, I know exactly what you mean. It's that feeling of, wow, kind of, is this it? And
There's a big reason why I want to do retreats, because I know the transformational power of it. And it's not to say everyone comes on retreat is going to want to leave their job, but it's like when you take that step away from you step off the treadmill, right? And you just allow yourself that quality time out to really intend to think these things through and think of them differently, that you get potentially a different answer come through. So I love that it happened for you in that way too.
Oh, yeah, it was the same. I remember driving. It was weird because I was in corporate, I was at an exhibition, and I was following Rebecca Campbell, the author, and she was running her first ever retreat to Glastonbury. And I'd been reading her books, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the call, but I'm in my corporate job. And it was the February. And I just remember going, fuck it. I had the money. I'll do it.
You went.
Booked it, and I was sat in the airport, and this is another thing, is like I felt like really embarrassed and like feeling the shame around like doing something without checking with my husband first. But I remember being in the airport. My kids were both really quite young, so I'd gone back to work, and my youngest was, I don't know, about a year old maybe. And I just remember messaging because it was my first trip away, and again, even that, I was out of the family unit, away to think about stuff. I remember sitting there going, I need to tell him. And I messaged and I said, by the way, I've done something. I've booked myself on a retreat and I've paid for it and I'm going, and it's in June. I'm really sorry. And he was I expected the other foot to drop, the other shoe to drop, like he'd go nuts at me. And he went, you really deserve it. You need it. You need that space, and you need to take some time for you because you haven't. And we've had little babies, and you've gone back to work and all of the things. And I remember sitting there on this retreat and just sobbing for about a week. And I met some really amazing women, and it was really bizarre because it was, again, there were women who, like, I had friends, right? But these women just met you on a different level. It's really bizarre. It's like the people you meet on retreat, you're experiencing a transformation with them. So there's just this whole totally different level of community, friendship, pain, whatever you want to call it. Like, I remember walking away thinking, like, Rebecca's lovely, and I still see her from time to time in Glastonbury and stuff, but those women that I met and I cried with and I sobbed with and screamed with were, I still hold them in my heart. Like, I have the English ones, the British ones that are still here, because there was women from all over the world that came. I still see. So kind of like, it's so powerful. Like, and that's what you do now, isn't it? That's what your business is.
Yeah, I'm the same. So one of my best friends is from that retreat. We came away from there. We were roomies, and we came away, and I think we spoke every day for months after that. And she's still in my life in a big way.
What retreat did you go on? Like,
it was in Bali, so it was like really quite special. And it was just with my health coach and a yoga instructor. So what was really fab about it was we had it was so out of my comfort zones. A, I wasn't really a yogi, but I thought I'll embrace it. And then B, they sort of insisted on this silent morning, which was so uncomfortable for me because
that is
around strangers as well. You want to go, morning, did you sleep well? Oh, it's a lovely day, don't you? Like all the small talk. But actually what that just taught me was just like, we're in this beautiful surroundings, just you get up, you sit with your journal for a bit, you grab a cup of tea, you go through the yoga practice, and then you sit down at breakfast, and it's only once you've eaten your breakfast that you can talk. And it sounds like I wouldn't want to do that. And they didn't advertise it that way, thankfully, otherwise I might not have gone. But it was probably the biggest thing that helped me really connect to myself, rather than because there was a risk that it could have been a real social thing and nothing would have changed, right? But it really helped that connection. And I think that's the biggest thing that I feel I am good at when I work with people at retreats, is helping them really take them out of that chaos that they're used to and just experiencing calm, but in a really safe way that helps them reconnect to their inner knowing, this inner certainty that we don't always hear because of all the external noise. And I don't know that I'd have been able to do that so well if I hadn't have actually experienced it firsthand and felt the transformative effect of absolutely doing that. So yeah, it's quite cool.
It's powerful, isn't it? Because I remember at the time, so similar situation. It wasn't the silent bit, but what it was no phones. Like, your phones are banned. It was for someone with young children. I was like, husband's not going to be too impressed. But what I also found is when I made a phone, so I think I got to about the Wednesday and I was like, I better check in and see how he's doing, because they were teeny babies and, you know, husband and working and stuff. I walked into Glastonbury town centre and I phoned him. I video called him and the children, and it was the worst thing I could have possibly done, because they were kind of muddling along on their own, and like I just kind of came in and, you know,
Yeah, disrupted that.
disrupted it. He was like, my God, please don't phone again when you're away, because it takes me about 3 hours to calm them down. So it's kind of reassuring to know, and it gives them space as well. But I'm guessing you probably have mums and stuff like that on your retreats as well. But I love the idea of the silence, because I don't know about you, but as I'm getting older, like when I used to wake up in the morning, I used to put the telly on, or I'd have the radio on, and it'd be noise, and there'd be people and noise and noise and noise. And now I'm like, oh God, I couldn't even. Can we just be quiet?
Yeah, I've got back into some bad habits with like having my phone next to the bed. So I've stopped that again, because I never used to do it. So my phone stays on charge downstairs. I give myself permission to look at my phone once I've done my morning exercise. And that's usually walking the dog as a minimum. Some, like, more recently I've added in like a pump and a combat class. So a few times a week it's that. It's glorious. It's like, I don't actually need the emails and the social media and what everyone else is doing in my sphere of awareness, when I'm actually trying to connect to what it is that I'm trying to achieve this week, like today, and just be like, remain connected to myself as long as possible. So, I also encourage phones off at retreats, and alcohol's the other thing as well. So alcohol hasn't been as big a thing for me as food has, but it's certainly still something I can get the taste for, and I can drink a lot, but not so much anymore. Actually, the retreats that I've ran, the first one I did have a bottle of bubbles, and after that I was like, do you know what? It's totally ruined the kind of whole flow of the day. So now there's like, I encourage people, and I'm actually taking a retreat to Spain in September, which I'm super excited about. And I'm actually saying this, like, I encourage you to embrace the alcohol-free nature of this week away, because not only are you going to sleep better and feel better the next morning and feel more refreshed, but you're actually going to remain connected, like, because you're really going to get that deep connection with yourself. And I think alcohol takes us out of ourselves, like removes something like an inhibition, of course, but it does take us out of ourselves. So for me, it's like anything like that takes us out of that deeper connection to ourselves is kind of like something I would encourage.
It's kind of the anti, isn't it? It's like, I again, this retreat was alcohol free. I think, well, the last night we went for dinner and we were in the pub, and I can't sort of say no, but I think because we were all leaving, it was a bit different. I think that feels okay, but I know exactly what you mean. It does kind of like ruin the vibe a little bit.
Yeah, and it's almost like, why, like, it's an opportunity,
like breath work and yoga and eating healthily. Like, why would you like ruin it all?
And I think it's an opportunity to look at, why do I think I need it? If that feels like a cinch point, you know, if that feels like a deal breaker, then that's an opportunity to look at why that might be. But generally it's not. And I think, I don't know about you, but like, I'm 46 now. I just cannot drink as much. I just feel like my hangover comes as I'm drinking my second drink. So it's not something that I want to do anymore. And I drink very little, and that's not to shame anyone that still drinks.
No, sure. And
path. So yeah.
I feel the same, because it's kind of like I enjoy. I think the difference is that when I was younger, it's probably a bit like the relationship with food that we had. It's like you consume it because it's there. It's like it was the done thing to go to the pub and drink lots of beer. It was kind of a thing that we did because not much else to do. And thank God there wasn't social media then. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not sober, but I am not drinking like I used to. So like I'll enjoy a glass of wine if it feels aligned.
Yeah.
Kind of. And I don't believe there's any shame in drinking if that's what you enjoy, or being sober either. But I guess that's the other thing, is like there is a little bit of shame around that. But
Anything, right? It's anything. I felt shame being in a bigger body. I felt shame for dieting. I felt shame for rejecting diets and like saying I'm not going to diet ever again. I felt shame for giving up a job. In people's eyes, I gave up a really good job to have my own business. I feel shame for not drinking. I feel shame for drinking. Like, you can't win. And I think it's all it all comes back down to, again, that connection with like, what do I want to do, regardless of what anyone else is doing, regardless of what like narrative we're fed on social media this week, because it'll probably change next week. Like, what do I want, and can I stand convicted in that? Because that's when, like, that's where you get freedom from, is because you're convicted in your own decision to do what's right for you. Yeah.
And I think as well, like there is an element of giving yourself permission to do, you know, it might be that you want to do that this week, but not that next week. I think that's our prerogative. And that's when we get to be curious and playful and, you know, explore the world that we're here to be in. Right. So, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love it. I could talk to you all day. I say this every time, but they're always really powerful conversations. And thank you for sharing your shame stories with us today. So you're talking about your retreat. So that's happening in September.
Yeah. Time Out retreat in Almeria in Spain. That's launching. Yeah, it's on early bird at the time of recording, but I think we might be in the normal sale by the time this is released. I have my podcast, which is called The Modern Leader Way, which is really just what I was talking about. It's like finding your way. So the Modern Leader Way is not my way, it's your way. And it's really helping you to look at this definition of success that you've been running on and reframe it based on what's important to you, based on your values, based on what you want from your life, from this one life. And yeah, being the leader in your life and your work, but doing it in a way that feels really good. So
you're never too old to change either, are you?
No, I've had people 60-year-old women on my retreats. I don't think you're ever too old. I think you just have to have the willingness to look at yourself and where you might want to change. And it's always like, if something feels off, then just follow the crumbs there.
Interesting. So how can people find you?
And so I'm on Instagram, emmaclayton.exo. I'm also Emma Clayton Coach on LinkedIn. They're my main two platforms that I'm on. You can find me on YouTube, The Modern Leader Way podcast, and on Apple, Spotify, or the places that you listen to podcasts as well.
Cool. And I will make sure that all the details are shared in the show notes. But thank you again, Emma, for coming on and sharing your story. Like, honestly, it's like there's so, I love these stories because there's always something that I can resonate with. But yeah, it's just really powerful. Yeah. If you want to get involved and go on retreat, I think you should look Emma up.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you again for listening to Shameless Stories. We'll be back next week with another episode, another story. And any comments and questions, please share and like, all the things.